Farrah Griffin. I'm the only one who has ever beat him, and I will beat him again. I know from my own reporting that that is something that President Biden firmly believes. Not only that, he firmly believes he's the only one who could have beaten him before and perhaps beat him again. What do you think of that?
It's actually a very Trumpian statement. It kind of reminds me of "I alone can fix it." I mean, it's demonstrably untrue. Generic Democrats have performed better against Donald Trump head-to-head than Joe Biden has. And in reading this piece, you can't tell if it's defiance or denial or maybe a mix of both in the president. I mean, even the strategic decision, respectfully, to sit down with the New Yorker, love the New Yorker, longtime subscriber, is this moving votes in Wayne County, Michigan, or in Bucks County, Pennsylvania? It seems like the target audience isn't even who he's reaching and giving this sweeping and long-standing interview that probably took hours out of the president's schedule.
The audience may be the media as the State of the Union address approaches Thursday night. In that context, maybe it does make sense. You raise the curtain on this giant weekend. You perhaps raise expectations. Evan Osnos in the piece writes, quote, "He often says of Biden, I feel so much younger than my age. In the early years of his presidency, when people asked him about his age, his stock response was, watch me. He doesn't say that as much anymore. Grudgingly, painfully, he may be coming to terms with the reality that people don't see him the way he hopes they will." Again, so addressing the age issue head on, put that in the context of this week with the State of the Union address. What does he have to do?
He has got to sell a forward-looking vision. So to give President Biden some credit, he's done remarkable progress on the economy. The economy is objectively doing better on most macro measures, the stock market, unemployment. But for a lot of Americans, grocery prices, that is what is impacting them most directly, and it's why people don't actually feel like the economy is as good as it's performing. Immigration, Joe Biden was behind the eight ball on this. It is the #1 issue for the vast majority of voters. He now does have a bill, but he needs to be able to call out Congress and specifically House Republicans for blocking it. But he also needs to talk about the future, not just wait for my actions to kick in. It's going to get better. He's got to have some kind of forward-looking vision.
What about the performance art insofar as it relates to his age?
I mean, listen, it's hard. I think the best line that he had to date was the one saying, you know, I would take old over old ideas. Juxtapose some of the more backward-looking ideas of the GOP. For example, this whole idea over IVF that's really come to the forefront, but even around reproductive health. That's something where I think you could get voters to say, yeah, he might be old, but his ideas are closer to where I am.
So when it comes to age, obviously, the new polls that came out this weekend have a whole bunch of numbers that are not great for President Biden. The candidate is too old to be president, too old to be an effective president. 73% say that Biden's too old. Only 42% say that Donald Trump is. But over the weekend, Donald Trump, in his public speeches, continues to interchange or mix up President Biden and Barack Obama. Listen to this.
And Putin, you know, has so little respect for Obama that he's starting to throw around the nuclear word. You heard.
So he does that all the time, mixes them up in speeches. Alyssa, you worked inside the White House. You saw Donald Trump firsthand when he was, albeit 4 years or several years younger, at least. How much does he miss or mix up facts and the like?
I have said this before. He is not as sharp as he was in 2016 and not even as sharp as he was in 2020. For some reason, that doesn't necessarily come across to voters the same way. But Donald Trump is not the strongest fighter that Republicans could have right now. And it's remarkable how much voters don't see the age as also an issue because he is only 3.5 years younger than President Joe Biden. But there is something about the way they carry themselves that is seen very differently.
When you say he's not the same as he was.
He's never been a super articulate or eloquent person, but he's consistently mixing up names of heads of state. He's mixing up names like Nancy Pelosi and Nikki Haley. I mean, it's gotten worse. It hasn't gotten better. He's not nearly as sharp as he was.
And just finally, let's circle back when you talked about reproductive rights. The new over-the-counter birth control pill is becoming available for the first time this week. You have the IVF situation in Alabama. The environment here does seem to be shifting to an area where the discussion is where Democrats would prefer it.
It absolutely is. I mean, this should be Democrats' race to lose. But I worry that, especially in reading this piece, that the president's headset is more focused on looking backward. 2020, we all saw that. We were horrified by January 6th. We were horrified by so much of Donald Trump. But you're not running against somebody in a global pandemic who tried to overthrow the government when the economy was in free fall. It's a very different time when you were the incumbent and you own everything that's wrong.
Farrah Griffin, great to have you here this morning. Thank you so much. Sarah?
All right, crews are struggling still to get control of a historic wildfire.